from here. This is a personal question. Why are you studying at Yale if you see so little value in philosophy? I believe that philosophy is a science whose basic premise is flawed. The basic premise of philosophy is that via man's intellect, the ultimate truths of life can be arrived at. There is no need for inspiration from God. And I believe that no, that's simply not true. Unless and until we have the revelation from God, we're not going to arrive at the ultimate truths of life. And the greatest indication of this is that there have been hundreds of thousands of philosophers in the history of man. And if you ever study philosophy, you must study hundreds of them. And no two of them, from the time of the pre-Socratic Greek philosophers until our modern living philosophers, no two of them ever agree on any fundamental point of life or death or ethics or morality or anything. How can this possibly be true when every single philosopher propounds a different theory of everything? If any philosopher were to come and agree with the previous philosopher, he wouldn't even be famous, he wouldn't be worth studying, right? You would be nobody. So in order to do something, he has to go against everybody, okay? And here you have, certain philosophers who become famous merely because they know they exist. I'm referring to who here? Not Galileo. Descartes. Descartes became famous in history because he proved to people he actually exists, right? I think, therefore, I am. And you have to ask yourself, if philosophers don't even know they exist, are they worthy of us studying their ideas? So, I'm sorry, yes, I do think philosophers kind of have lost track of reality. And it's, people have to sometimes point out the emperor with no clothes. Everybody's too scared of talking about philosophers because they're so daunted by their speech. Look, guys, let's be honest here. You pick up Plato, Aristotle, Socrates, you can be as intelligent as anything. You won't understand anything they're talking about. They're just going to go over your head. And then you go, and I've gone through this stage, that's why I'm speaking. When I was an undergraduate at the University of Houston, I was in the honors college, and you're supposed to study the great works, they called it. So we studied Plato and all of these people, and I was a freshman coming in, and I'm reading these books, and I always consider myself to be a very intelligent person. I got very high SAT scores and, valedictorian in my high school and everything. I'm reading these books, I'm like, what is he talking about? And I show up in class, and everybody seems to understand what's going on, except me. It's like, whoa, they all understand except me. And it took me many, many years to realize it's basically the emperor with no clothes. Everybody is scared to point out the obvious, which is, this stuff doesn't make any sense. It has no relevance to our lives. It has nothing to do with me as a human being. What is the meaning of concepts and forms and living in caves and shadows? That's Aristotle here. What has it got to do with anything? It's not going to make me a better person or make me understand how to live or provide for my family or anything. Somebody has to say it bluntly. And so in order to say that, I need to study it. And I speak from experience. I know what I'm talking about. It's not something that I have no clue what it is. I know it and I'm studying it. And also, I'm not just studying philosophy at Yale. My Ph.D. is Islamic Studies. Therefore, I'm studying Islamic Studies. In the course of my Islamic Studies, I am personally concentrating on philosophy as well, because I find it very interesting coming from a different perspective now. Not coming as a student. Coming, in my humble opinion, as an outside observer now. I'm not affected by the views of Aristotle and Plato and Socrates and Descartes and Hume and Nietzsche. I'm not affected by them. But I read them and I see where they're coming from. And honestly, I feel a bit of empathy and sympathy for them. Because most of them live very miserable lives. They couldn't... Again, I'm not making this up. They themselves live very miserable lives. They never found these eternal truths. Read about Nietzsche, read about Socrates and how he died, and Plato and whatnot. Somebody has to just point out the emperor is naked, and if that has to be me, then so be it.